At Thanksgiving dinner, while everyone else was pretending to enjoy overcooked turkey and forced family small talk, my fiancé leaned in and whispered, "Why aren't you in any of these pictures?" That's how it started, with a whisper. And 5 hours later, I was calling the FBI. I thought those family photos proved I belonged. Turns out they were edited, and I was never supposed to be there in the first place. I never liked Thanksgiving. Maybe because our house always smelled like lemon floor cleaner and turkey fat, or maybe because it was the one day of the year everyone pretended we were a normal family. That year, I brought Micah with me, my fiancé, a photographer who sees things most people miss. I thought he'd help ground me, help me survive the polite smiles and loaded silences. I didn't know he'd spot the lie my whole life was built on. We pulled up to my parents' house in Boulder around 3:15 p.m. My mother hugged Micah too long, handed me a cold side hug, and told me I looked tired. Classic. Inside, everything looked the same. The pumpkin centerpiece, the flickering candles, the dishes we only used once a year. My sister Hannah was already there, drinking Cabernet in a cashmere sweater, laughing a little too hard at her own jokes. Her boyfriend Clark looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. We sat down at the dinner table. My dad gave his yearly toast about gratitude and legacy. I tuned it out. I always do. Then came the food. The turkey was dry. The cranberry sauce was the store-bought kind. No one commented. They never do. Micah squeezed my hand under the table. I knew he felt it too, the tension, the performance. No one asked me about my job, about my writing, about anything. They asked Micah about photography stuff. They asked Hannah about her new real estate venture. When the attention looped toward me, it skipped like a broken record. I smiled through it. 9 minutes. That's how long it took for them to forget I was there. After dessert, Mom clapped her hands and said it was time to bring out the memory box. She always did this, pulled out that old cedar box from under the stairs like it was some surprise. Inside were photos, handwritten notes, dried pressed leaves, kid drawings, things from our childhood. She made a big show of passing around a stack of photos. Hannah beamed in hers, baby photos, ballet recitals, a birthday where she had a tiara. Clark awed at everyone like he was auditioning for Boyfriend of the Year. Then she handed me a small pile. "These are yours," she said. I recognized them. A photo of me in a pink coat in front of a picket fence, one on a swing set, one near the Grand Canyon, supposedly. Micah leaned over to look. I didn't notice the way his brow furrowed until he whispered, "Ev, why are you making the exact same face in all of these?" I blinked. "What?" Same head tilt, same smile, same lighting. This one says it's 1999, this one says 2001, but the shadows are identical. I laughed, or tried to. "You're imagining it." But he wasn't. He held the photos closer, lined them up like puzzle pieces. Then he went quiet. Very quiet. "Let's go," he said later, making some excuse about a work call. I grabbed my coat. No one protested. No one really cared. Back in the car, he looked at me with eyes I'd never seen on him before. Eyes full of dread. "I think someone built your past," he said, "and they used Photoshop." I wanted to scream, I wanted to laugh, I wanted to pretend he was wrong. But all I said was, "Drive." I didn't speak much on the ride home. Neither did Micah. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the way they get when he's trying not to panic. The silence between us felt like a live wire. When we got back to our apartment, I walked in and dropped my coat without realizing it. My hands were shaking, but I didn't know why yet. Not really. Micah opened his camera bag and pulled out something he wasn't supposed to have. 4 glossy photos. He'd taken them from the memory box when no one was looking. "I shouldn't have done this," he said quietly. "But something wasn't right, and now I can't unsee it." He laid the photos out on the kitchen counter like evidence at a crime scene. The first one was of me, maybe 7, standing in front of a white fence. Pink coat, head tilted, half smile. The second, same me, different year, in front of a swing set at a park I don't remember. Third, me again, at what my mom always said was the Grand Canyon. Same expression, same coat. My stomach twisted. "These were supposed to be years apart," he said. "But look at the shadows." I leaned in. He was right. The light hit the same side of my face in all of them. The crease above my brow, the exact curve of my smile. Not similar, identical. Micah fired up his editing software, dragged the photos into a side-by-side layout, highlighted the outlines. "Ev, this isn't just a resemblance, it's the same image, cropped, resized, and pasted onto different backgrounds." He zoomed in on the pixelation around my hair in one, jagged, unnatural. That's when it hit me in a place I didn't have words for yet. I wasn't in those memories. I had been inserted. I backed away from the counter like the photos might catch fire. "This can't be real," I said. "No one does that. No one fakes a childhood." Micah looked at me then, eyes soft but steady. "Ev, who takes pictures of a child and uses the same one across multiple years? Do you remember those moments? I opened my mouth, closed it. I couldn't. I remembered being 6 and waking up in a bedroom I didn't recognize. I remembered my mother brushing my hair too hard and telling me to smile for pictures. I remembered feeling watched, but not the park, not the canyon, not the fence. Then he pulled out one last photo. This one I'd never seen before. A baby, pale skin, light hair, different nose, bigger eyes, not me. Your baby pictures, he said. They showed us some tonight, but this isn't you, and it's the only infant photo they had. My chest started to tighten. My heart raced, but everything around me felt slow. Maybe it's me, I said, but even I didn't believe it. He handed me a final picture. Me, around 8, standing between my mom and dad in front of a stone courthouse. The outline of my body was blurry. The shadows didn't match. I looked pasted on. I stared at it for a long time. Then I laughed. But it wasn't joy. It was the laugh you make when the floor drops and your mind can't catch up. So what does that make me? I whispered. A scrapbook project? Micah didn't answer. I spent the rest of the night at the kitchen table, staring at the photos. The girl in those pictures looked like me, but now I wasn't sure she ever was me. Because if your childhood is a lie, who are you really? At 2:43 a.m., I was still sitting at the kitchen table. The photos lay in front of me like a seance, summoning a past I didn't remember, a life I wasn't sure I'd ever lived. Micah had fallen asleep on the couch, still fully dressed. He didn't snore, just breathed slow and steady, like his body had gone into hibernation from the weight of what we'd discovered. I, on the other hand, was unraveling. I kept touching the photos like they might feel different now. Like one of them might shift, blink, whisper, "This is who you are." But they never did. Instead, I got a memory. A flicker. At first, it was nothing. Just a smell. Citrus and lavender. Not the lemon cleaner my mom always used, but something softer, warmer. Then a voice. Gentle, accented, whispering words I didn't fully understand but somehow knew were meant for me. And then a hallway. Fluorescent lights. A clipboard. A woman behind a glass window asking me to smile in English I barely understood. I gasped. The memory was so sharp it sliced right through the fog in my head. Micah stirred. "Ev?" I didn't answer. I was already moving. I stumbled into the bathroom, flipped on the light, and stared at myself in the mirror. Who is that? I pressed my fingers against my cheeks, trying to match them to the girl in the photos. Same jawline, same eyes. But now that I knew they were manufactured, even my reflection felt unreal. Micah came to the doorway, voice low. "Talk to me." "I don't remember anything before I was 6, I said. Not birthdays, not lullabies, not her." "Her?" I nodded slowly. "A woman, not my mom, someone else. She had darker skin, long dark hair. She called me Mija." Micah didn't speak, just waited. I took a breath, my throat shaking. I think she was my real mother. It didn't make sense, except that it did. Everything clicked into place like an ugly puzzle. The way my parents never let me speak Spanish, even when I tried in kindergarten. The way they changed the subject anytime I asked where we lived before Boulder. The fact that we never had visitors, never talked about family, never celebrated holidays that weren't strictly American. I used to think it was trauma, or war, or just the way some families are. Now I knew better. I sat down on the edge of the tub and whispered, "Micah, I think I was taken." He knelt in front of me, his hands resting gently on my knees. "You don't have to be sure tonight," he said. "But if you think something happened, if you're ready, we call." I didn't know what I was ready for. I just knew I was tired of pretending. I grabbed my phone. My hand was trembling so hard I almost dropped it. I dialed 911. The line rang once. Twice. Then, 911, what's your emergency? My voice caught in my throat. I looked at Micah. He nodded. I forced out the words. I think I was kidnapped. A long time ago. I don't remember everything, but I remember enough. And the photos? Someone edited my life. There was a pause on the line, then a calm, firm voice. "Are you in immediate danger?" "No," I said. "But the people who raised me, they aren't who they said they were." The dispatcher stayed on the line for a few minutes, took our address, logged a welfare concern, promised a follow-up from the investigative unit. When the call ended, I set my phone down slowly. Micah wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. We sat on the bathroom floor in silence. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to hold it together. I was letting it fall. Because maybe, just maybe, truth begins where the lie ends. It came like a courtesy. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, not frantic, not threatening, just deliberate. Like someone asking for permission to ruin what was left of your peace. I glanced at the clock. 4:15 p.m. Micah was already moving toward the door. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. I stood behind him, wrapped in a sweater I hadn't realized I was still wearing from the night before. The air felt dense, like grief had started to settle in the walls. He opened the door, There they were, my parents, or whatever word I was supposed to use now. My mom stood holding a brown paper grocery bag like she'd just come from the farmer's market. My dad stood behind her, hands in his coat pockets, face unreadable. Neither looked angry, neither looked ashamed. Just tired. "Hi, sweetheart," my mom said, already stepping inside. "I brought some of that carrot ginger soup you used to like. From when you were sick that one winter, remember?" I didn't. What I remembered from that winter was being 8, curled up on the floor with a fever, and her telling me, "Stop crying, you're not dying." Micah didn't speak. He just shut the door behind them with a quiet thud. They sat on the couch like they were guests in someone else's life. My mom placed the bag gently on the coffee table, smoothed her skirt, and looked around the apartment like it might offer her some kind of excuse. My dad stayed standing. "We heard you filed something," she said carefully, "a report." I sat across from her, heart thudding. "I did." She blinked, surprised by how calm I was. "You should have just come to us first." I leaned forward. "Would you have told me the truth?" There was a long pause. Then quietly she nodded. "You're not biologically ours." Micah didn't flinch, neither did I, because now, hearing it, it didn't even hurt. It just settled, like a door finally creaking open. "We didn't kidnap you," she said. "Your mother, your birth mother, was young. She was scared. She begged us to take you." "Begged?" I repeated. "And that made it okay to lie to me for 23 years?" My dad spoke for the first time. "We gave you a life, a stable one. We didn't think you needed to know." Micah stepped forward, his voice was even. "So why the fake photos?" My mom inhaled sharply, like she'd just been caught shoplifting something she didn't even need. "We didn't want her to feel like she didn't belong," she said. "We thought it would help." "You erased someone else's life," Micah said. "You made her up." "I was 5, I said. "You think I wouldn't remember?" "You didn't," my dad snapped. Silence. Then she pulled something from the bag, a photo. Me, maybe 6, holding my dad's hand on a sidewalk. "This one's real," she said almost desperately. "This one happened." I didn't reach for it. Because even if it was real, it wasn't enough. "We didn't steal you," my dad said again. "We saved you." I stared at them. "And yet," I said slowly, "I still don't know her name." My mom hesitated. My dad ran a hand down his face like he was tired of this inconvenience called consequences. Finally, he muttered it. Sophia Alvarez." The name hit like a ripple, small at first, then everything inside me shifted. "Where is she?" "We don't know," my mom said. "You never looked." "It was complicated." "No," I cut her off. "It was easy. You just didn't want to." No one said anything. Finally, Micah opened the door. "Time to go." They stood. At the threshold, my mom turned and said, "We loved you. You were ours." I met her eyes and said, "I was never yours. I just didn't remember that until now." The door closed behind them. And for the first time in years, the apartment felt clean. The name lingered in my mind like a secret someone had whispered into a dream. Sophia Alvarez. Micah was already pulling up his laptop before the door even finished closing behind my parents. I sat at the kitchen table, fingers tracing the grooves in the wood, staring blankly. My mind was playing a reel of static and fragmented flashes. A citrus scent, a warm voice calling me Mija, the way my hands once fit into someone else's. Someone softer, not my mother, not the woman who had just stood in my living room trying to pass off a photo like a pardon. Micah spoke, calm but focused. "There are over 200 Sophia Alvarezes in the southwest region alone." "Start with Texas," I said. They mentioned the border. I remember some kind of checkpoint, a hot, buzzing hallway, paper signs in Spanish. He nodded, already filtering search results. Pages opened, closed, dead ends. A florist in Laredo, a retired nurse in Tucson. Nothing matched. Then, wait. He turned the screen toward me. A grainy Facebook profile, no filters, no smile. Just a woman in her early 50s, dark eyes, jaw set like stone, but familiar, uncomfortably so. I stared. "She looks like you," Micah said. "No," I whispered. "I look like her." Her About section listed a small town outside El Paso. The name of the town rang in my head like a forgotten song. I didn't know why, but I knew I'd heard it before. Once, maybe twice, when my mom had slipped and quickly changed the subject. We didn't hesitate. Micah typed the message, simple, direct, translated carefully. "Hello, your name was given to me. I think I may be your daughter. My name is Evelyn Cross, at least that's what I've been told." We waited. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The next morning, the reply came. "Can we talk?" My heart stopped. Micah set up the video call. I didn't remember agreeing to it. I just remember sitting on the couch, legs pulled to my chest, wrapped in a blanket like it could hold me together if everything shattered. Then her face appeared. Older than the photo, tired, but her eyes, my eyes. She stared for a long moment, then covered her mouth with her hand like she was holding back the years. I wasn't sure, she said, voice thick with accent. But now that I see you, she broke. Tears rolled down her cheeks, no sobbing, just a quiet collapse. I've been looking for you for 24 years, she said. Your name wasn't Evelyn, it was Lucia Alvarez. It didn't sound familiar, but it settled inside me like something I'd once lost and just found under the floorboards. Did you give me up? I asked. Her face twisted. No, God, no, you were 5. I left you with a neighbor, someone I trusted, just for a few hours. I went to the municipal office. When I came back, you were gone. I felt my throat close. We searched. My brothers, my cousins, we tore the streets apart. I went to every station, every camp, every checkpoint. They said it was war, that children disappear. She looked into the camera, eyes wet and furious. But I knew. You didn't disappear, you were taken. Micah reached over, held my hand. I sat there frozen, one thought ringing louder than anything. They didn't take me because they loved me. They took me because they needed me. Sophia continued. I had a resettlement visa to the U.S. for families with children. Without you, they took me off the list. They said I didn't qualify. I lost everything. That was it. I wasn't a daughter. I was a visa. And they'd built my life, my photos, my memories, my identity, on top of the ashes of someone else's loss. I didn't cry, not yet. I just stared at the screen and whispered, I'm sorry. Sophia shook her head. You were a child. This was never your fault. Micah said it out loud, like he needed the room to hear it. We found her. And for the first time in my life, I finally knew who her was. 2 weeks after the video call, I stood in a precinct lobby in Denver, holding a manila envelope labeled Case File Number 4741, Cross Evelyn, aka Alvarez Lucia. Micah was beside me, calm like always, but I could feel the tension in his posture. On my other side was Sophia, my mother, my real mother. She wore a navy coat. Her hands trembled only slightly as she handed over a folded, faded flyer from 24 years ago. A grainy photo of a 5-year-old girl in a red scarf standing in front of a cement wall. Missing, Lucia Alvarez. The officer took it from her, eyes scanning carefully, then looked up at me. This is you? I nodded. It always was. The investigation moved quickly after that. My so-called parents hadn't been nearly as careful as they thought. Their American names didn't match the records buried in a dusty cabinet in El Paso. Turns out their Serbian passports were never destroyed, just stored. In the back of a closet, tucked behind tax folders and Christmas ornaments, right next to their moral compass. They hadn't just edited photos. They'd falsified federal documents, lied on immigration forms, and crossed international borders with a child who wasn't theirs. What they did wasn't adoption, it was abduction, dressed up in cozy suburban lies and PTA meetings. The charges? Immigration fraud, falsifying identity, international child concealment, obstruction of investigation. And the sentence? Deportation, no appeals, no deals, no but we raised her arguments. Because what they raised wasn't me. It was a version of me they invented. They never saw it coming. The day they were taken into custody, my mom still showed up at court in pearls and mascara like she was going to brunch. My dad didn't say a word, just kept glancing over at me like I was the one who'd ruined something sacred. But I wasn't there to ruin anything, I was there to reclaim it. They were gone within 6 months, stripped of U.S. citizenship, escorted to the airport, put on a flight to Belgrade, and they can't come back. Hannah stayed. Of course she did, she was born here. We didn't speak for weeks. Then one day, she showed up at my door with a latte and puffy eyes. She didn't apologize exactly, just said, that was really messed up, I didn't know. I nodded, I believe you. We're not sisters by blood, but she still knows how I take my coffee. And maybe, for now, that's enough. Sophia moved to the U.S. 6 months later under the family reunification visa. Micah and I helped with the paperwork. She got a job at a small bakery down the street. Said it reminded her of one she worked at when she was 21. Before the war, before the loss, before the silence. Now, she calls every Sunday. She sends me recipes. She hugs me like it's both an apology and a promise. Sometimes I still forget that I'm allowed to call her mama. Sometimes I still flinch when I look at photos. But we're getting there. Micah and I are getting married next fall. Sophia cried when she got the invitation. She'll be sitting in the front row. And the people who raised me? They'll be watching from the only place they ever truly belonged, far, far away. I changed my name back, Lucia Alvarez. It doesn't erase what happened, but it gives me back something I didn't know I needed, ownership over my own story. Did I go too far, or maybe did I finally go just far enough? You tell me. In the comments. Sometimes the truth doesn't come with a bang. It arrives as a whisper you've been hearing your whole life, and only just found the courage to listen to. And justice? It isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's simply about reclaiming who you were always meant to be. I grew up in a story someone else wrote for me, with pictures that weren't real, a name that wasn't mine. But I stepped out of it. I chose truth over comfort. I chose to remember. And I chose to start over, on my own terms, with my real name. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, if you've ever questioned the roles people cast you into, you're not broken, you're awakening. This wasn't just a story about what was stolen, it's a story about what I reclaimed. Thank you for watching all the way through. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. On this channel, Sweet Revenge, Happy Ending, we believe healing starts where silence ends, and sometimes the best revenge is finally being free.